Alert! Enemy warship spotted, humans have arrived. HFY sci-fi story. The cold, silent void of space had always been a domain where only the strong survived. The galaxy's most powerful species, the Zorathians, had long ruled the stars with an iron fist. But there was a whisper, an ancient prophecy among the Zorathian elite, that one day, a new force would arrive, one they would never anticipate. And today was that day. On the command deck of the Zorathian warship Might of Zorith, Captain Velterer stood at the viewport, scanning the expanse of the distant star system. His eyes narrowed as a low hum filled the room, a ripple of unease flowing through the crew. The tactical officer, Kara, stood up sharply from her console. "Captain, we've detected an anomaly," Kara said, her voice laced with tension. "It's approaching fast, much faster than any ship we've ever encountered." Velterer turned to her, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "What do you mean by faster? We've calculated the velocities of all known ships in this quadrant." "It's not any ship we know," Kara replied, her eyes widening as she watched the data scrolling down the screen. "It's..." Before she could finish, an alarm blared, cutting through the tension. "Alert! Enemy warship spotted, approaching at warp speed." Velterer's heart skipped a beat. The Zorathians were the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, feared by all who dared to challenge them. They had seen entire fleets fall before them, entire civilizations crumble at their feet. But this was different. "Where is it coming from?" Velterer demanded, taking a step toward Kara's console. "From the third planet in the Vol system, Captain," Kara said, tapping a few controls. "It's not broadcasting any IFF signals, and there's no record of any ship in the Federation database matching its profile." "Unidentified," Velterer muttered, a flash of suspicion crossing his face. "It's a trap." The ship's proximity alarms blared once again. "Captain," Kara said, her voice shaking now, It's here." Outside, the void split apart with the sudden appearance of a vessel that was nothing like the Zorathians had ever seen. Sleek, metallic, and brimming with power, it shot toward them like a storm of retribution. The moment its silhouette came into view, the crew could feel the force of its presence. This was no mere ship. This was a force of nature. The enemy warship didn't stop, didn't even hesitate. With a calculated strike, it breached the perimeter of Zorathian space, its engines flaring like a fiery beacon. "Open a communications channel," Velterer ordered, though his gut told him it wouldn't matter. The Zorathians were known for their brutal conquest, whoever this was. They wouldn't stand down so easily. The voice that crackled through the comms was unmistakable, clear, confident, and daring. "This is Captain James Hawkins of the Terran Fleet," the voice said, cutting through the static. "You're in the wrong system. Zorathians, step aside or we'll show you why humans are the apex predators of this galaxy." The words hung in the air like a challenge. The Zorathian officers exchanged confused looks. Humans? What was this? Captain Velterer straightened, his eyes narrowed with disbelief. Humans? Impossible. They're nothing but myth. No species in this galaxy has ever withstood a Zorathian assault. And yet, here they are. "Prepare to engage," Velterer ordered, slamming his fist on the console. The battle began. The Terran ship moved with unrelenting precision, dodging every blast from the Zorathian warship's weapons and responding with devastating strikes. The Zorathians had underestimated the humans, thinking their primitive fleets and limited technology would be easy prey. But they hadn't counted on one thing: the humans' relentless determination to survive, adapt, and fight back. On the Might of Zorith, systems were failing faster than Velterer could react. The Terran ship's weapons ripped through their shields like they were paper, each blast shaking the Zorathian warship to its core. "We can't hold them off," Kara screamed. "Their weapons are too powerful." Velterer gritted his teeth, watching in awe as the humans fought with a precision and fearlessness that was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The enemy ship didn't just attack, it pursued, it adapted, and it learned. They were relentless. On the bridge of the Terran ship, Captain Hawkins watched the destruction unfold with calm focus. He had studied the Zorathians, known their weaknesses, their arrogance, their reliance on brute force, had blinded them to the one thing they had never understood about humans: survival was in their blood. Humans weren't just a species, they were a living embodiment of defiance. You'll regret ever crossing into our space. Velter, Captain Hawkins said with a voice laced with finality. This is your last warning. And with that, the final blow came. A single, massive shot from the Terran ship's core weapon split the Zorathian warship's hull in two. The might of Zorith erupted into flames, its once proud form collapsing into a debris field of twisted metal and shattered remnants. As the Zorathians tried to escape, it was already too late. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Terran fleet had not come to negotiate, they had come to conquer. The Zorathians weren't the apex predators anymore. The humans had arrived, and they weren't going anywhere. The aftermath, humans take the lead. The aftermath of the battle left the galaxy in a stunned silence. The might of Zorith, once a symbol of dominance and fear, was now a smoldering husk, drifting aimlessly in the cold expanse of space. The message had been sent clear. The humans were not just a force to be reckoned with. They were the new masters of the stars. Back on the bridge of the Terran flagship Endurance, Captain James Hawkins stood before the viewport, gazing out at the wreckage of the Zorathian warship. His face was hard, unyielding, but inside, a fire was burning, a fire of victory, a fire that had taken centuries to ignite. "You've done well, Captain," came the voice of General Catherine Briggs, the leader of the Terran High Command. Over the comm, the Zorathians never stood a chance. Hawkins didn't respond immediately. He had been expecting this. Everyone thought the victory was complete, but there was a nagging thought at the back of his mind. What happens now? "General, we didn't just beat them," Hawkins replied, his voice measured. "We've shaken the foundation of everything they've known. But I'm afraid the Zorathians won't go quietly. The galaxy has felt their cruelty for centuries, and we've just shown them we're not afraid. They'll come back stronger." General Briggs' voice was grim, but resolute. "And when they do, we'll be ready." The Federation has already begun making arrangements, new alliances, new treaties. Humanity is no longer just a fledgling power in the galaxy, we are the future. Hawkins glanced at the stars ahead of him. "That may be true, General, but power alone won't keep the peace. We'll need to prove that we're not just conquerors, but protectors too." He turned, his sharp gaze sweeping over his crew. "Prepare for the next phase. We need to send a message, not just to the Zorathians, but to every species watching. Humanity is here to stay, and we will not back down." The Federation's response. In the heart of the Federation Council, politicians and diplomats were hard at work. The sudden appearance of the Terran fleet had sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy, and every species, from the Glaric to the peaceful Drakari, now had to decide how to respond to the Terran rise to power. Ambassador Thrakis, a high-ranking official of the Glaric Alliance, stood before the Federation Council in a tense meeting. His species had been cautious observers of human progress, always keeping their distance. But now, the time for caution had passed. Humanity's intervention in the Zorathian conflict has proven their strength. Ambassador Thrakis began. "But we must ask ourselves, can we trust them? The Zorathians were ruthless, yes, but they were also a stabilizing force in many systems. With them gone, what will prevent humanity from assuming the same position?" A murmur ran through the council as other ambassadors weighed in, their faces a mixture of intrigue and concern. From the opposite side of the room, Ambassador R'Lana of the Drakari spoke up, her sharp eyes glowing with a mix of admiration and wariness. "The Zorathians believed they were untouchable, and look what happened. Humanity has shown us something powerful today, a will to fight, to win, and to survive. We may not know exactly what they want yet, but we do know this, they will not be ignored." General Briggs' voice echoed through the chamber via a live transmission. "The Terran Federation does not seek dominance. Ambassador Thrakis, we seek peace. We offer you a choice. Join us in rebuilding what the Zorathians have destroyed, or be left to pick up the pieces on your own. Humanity is not here to destroy. We are here to lead, to protect, to build a new future where no one is left in the shadows." A heavy silence settled over the room. Slowly, one by one, the representatives of the Federation began to nod, accepting the reality of the shift in power. They might have feared humanity at first, but there was one thing that no one could deny: the Terrans had earned their place at the top. A new era. Back on Earth, celebrations were already underway. The human population had been watching the unfolding events with bated breath. And now that the Zorathian menace was crushed, there was an undeniable sense of triumph. Flags were raised in every major city, and the people gathered to witness the dawn of a new era. Hawkins stood in the middle of the grand hall aboard Endurance, receiving honors and accolades from his fellow Terrans. But even as they praised him, he knew the journey ahead was far from over. "We've won the battle," Hawkins said, his voice strong, though the weight of responsibility hung heavy on his shoulders. "But now, we have to win the peace." He walked to the comm station and keyed in a transmission to the entire Terran fleet. "Soldiers of the Terran Federation," he began, his voice steady and resolute, "we've defeated the Zorathians, but there will be others who will test our resolve. We are no longer the underdogs of this galaxy. We are the defenders of the weak, the protectors of the innocent. Our victory today is just the beginning. The galaxy will look to us for guidance, for strength, and for leadership. Let us not fail them." As the message went out across the stars, Hawkins looked out at the vast expanse of space beyond the ship's windows. The stars were no longer distant and cold. They were now a symbol of the future, humanity's future. And as the Terran fleet set its course for the next horizon, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never forget that humans had arrived. The shadows loom, a new rival emerges. The newfound peace was a fragile thing, like the calm before the storm. With the defeat of the Zorathians and the Vorth, humanity's influence had spread across the galaxy. The Terran Federation had forged alliances with species that once viewed them with suspicion, and the Federation Council was now the most powerful governing body in the galaxy. Yet, even as alliances flourished, deep in the uncharted reaches of space, something dark and ancient stirred. Beyond the fringes of known space, where even the most advanced Terran ships dared not venture, a shadowed empire watched and waited. The Zalanar, a species whose existence had been shrouded in myth and terror. Little was known about them, save for whispered tales of their destructive power. Some said they were ancient enemies of the Zorathians. Others claimed they were the original architects of galactic destruction, a race of conquerors who had vanished into the void long ago. But the Zalanar were not gone. They were only biding their time. The Zalanar's arrival. It was a quiet day on Earth when the first signs of the Zalanar re-emerged. The Terran Federation was engaged in routine operations, diplomatic meetings, trade negotiations, and military drills. Captain Hawkins stood at the helm of the Endurance, scanning reports and overseeing fleet operations. His mind, however, was preoccupied with a new intelligence report that had just come in. "Captain," said Lieutenant Corbin, her voice tight with tension, "we've received an encrypted transmission from an unknown source. It's coming from the Vol system, deep in uncharted space." Hawkins narrowed his eyes. The Vol system had been a point of interest ever since the Zorathian defeat, but no significant threats had emerged from that region. The transmission itself was unsettling, not because of what it said, but because of its source. "Patch it through," Hawkins ordered, his voice steady but alert. The screen flickered, and a chilling image appeared. It was an alien face, but unlike anything Hawkins had ever seen. The creature was humanoid in shape, but its skin was an unnatural shade of black, with veins of red energy pulsing beneath it. Its eyes glowed with an eerie violet hue, and its voice resonated deep in Hawkins' chest. "Humanity," the creature said, its voice like the grinding of stone. "You are a brief spark in the void, a fleeting moment in the eternal night. The Zalanar have returned, and we will reclaim the galaxy as our own." Before Hawkins could respond, the transmission cut off, leaving only static. The words lingered in his mind: "The Zalanar have returned." "We need to respond, Captain," Corbin said, her face pale. "This is unlike anything we've ever faced. If they were truly a threat to the Zorathians, then they could pose a danger to us as well." Hawkins stood still, weighing his options. The Vorth had been a challenge, but this felt different. The Zorathians were a brutish force, but the Zalanar felt ancient, an empire that had laid dormant for far too long. Their mere mention sent a chill down his spine. "We'll need to investigate," Hawkins said, his voice steady despite the rising tension in his chest. "Send a fleet to the Vol system. I want every available ship ready for deployment. We're not waiting for them to strike first." The unseen enemy. The fleet, led by the Endurance, entered the Vol system under a veil of secrecy. As they ventured deeper into the uncharted territories, the stars seemed to grow dimmer, as if the very fabric of space was warping around them. "Captain," Corbin said, her voice quivering, "we're picking up strange readings, energy signatures, unlike anything we've encountered before. It's almost as if something is cloaking their presence." The sensors buzzed with static as Hawkins gripped the edge of his command console. The void around them was vast and silent, yet it felt like an impending storm was bearing down on them. "Hold course," Hawkins ordered, eyes fixed on the viewscreen. "We're not backing down. Keep scanning. Something's out there." Suddenly, the silence was broken by a harsh, deep rumble that reverberated through the ship. The alarms blared as massive shadows appeared on the edges of the system's planets. It was too late. The Zalanar ships emerged from the shadows like ghosts from an ancient nightmare. Their forms were sleek, predatory, and brimming with dark energy. Their hulls shimmered with an ethereal glow, an unsettling blend of organic material and dark technology. The fleet that had once seemed like a mere myth was now very real, and very deadly. "We've been ambushed," Corbin shouted as the first salvo of weapons fire collided with the Endurance. The ship rocked violently, and the crew scrambled to maintain control. "Shields at 40%, reported the tactical officer. "The Zalanar are closing in, Captain. They're fast and their weapons are unlike anything we've seen." Hawkins didn't hesitate. "Return fire. Take down their lead ship." The battle erupted in a flurry of bright energy blasts and shuddering impacts. The Terran ships fired with deadly precision, but the Zalanar ships were faster, more agile, and their energy shields absorbed the Terran shots as if they were nothing more than a nuisance. Then came the first devastating blow. A massive burst of dark energy surged from the lead Zalanar ship, cutting through the Terran fleet's shields like they were paper. The explosion shook the Endurance, and the bridge was filled with flashing red lights. "We can't take much more of this," Lieutenant Corbin shouted as the ship's systems began to fail. "Their weapons are tearing through our defenses." Hawkins gritted his teeth. "All ships, engage evasive maneuvers. We have to hold them off long enough for reinforcements to arrive." But as the battle continued, it became clear that reinforcements were still too far away. The Terran fleet was outmatched, and the Zalanar had them surrounded. The price of power. The Endurance was severely damaged, and Hawkins knew they were running out of time. As his crew fought valiantly to keep the ship operational, Hawkins made a decision that would shape the future of the galaxy. "General Briggs," Hawkins said, connecting to the Federation's command center, "we need every fleet we can muster. The Zalanar are here, and they're unlike anything we've ever faced." Briggs' voice crackled through the calm, thick with urgency. "Understood, Captain. We're mobilizing the full fleet now." "Hold on, Hawkins, you're not alone in this." But Hawkins knew that even with reinforcements, the Zalanar were a force that would take everything humanity had to stop. As the battle raged on, it became clear that humanity's struggle for dominance in the galaxy was far from over. The Zalanar were not merely invaders, they were a test to see if humanity could truly lead the galaxy, or if they would fall to the same fate as the Zorathians. In the shadows of space, an ancient empire had returned, and they would stop at nothing to claim the stars as their own. To be continued. The war for the stars, the fight against the Zalanar. The battle against the Zalanar was a turning point, not only for humanity but for the entire galaxy. The Federation's forces had been battered, the Terran fleet was under siege, and the Zalanar showed no sign of slowing their relentless advance. Their ships, fueled by dark energy and powered by technologies far older than any the Federation had encountered, were a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Hawkins stood on the bridge of the Endurance, his face grim as he watched the chaos unfolding before him. His crew worked tirelessly to maintain the ship's integrity as the Zalanar continued their assault, sending energy blasts that shook the hull with devastating force. "We can't keep this up much longer," Lieutenant Corbin said, her voice strained. "Their ships are too fast, their weapons too powerful. The fleet is starting to fall back." "Not yet," Hawkins replied, his voice steady despite the storm of uncertainty swirling within him. "We hold the line. Reinforcements are on the way." But the truth was, even with reinforcements, the Terran forces were vastly outmatched. The Zalanar had been biding their time for centuries, waiting for the moment when the galaxy would be weak enough to claim it as their own. And now, With the Zorathians fallen and humanity at its peak, they saw an opportunity to strike. "Captain," a voice crackled over the calm. It was General Briggs. "We've sent every available fleet we can spare, but the ZALNAR are making their move faster than we anticipated. They're headed for the heart of the Federation. We've got to slow them down," Hawkins said, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "Find me a way to disrupt their technology. We need to turn the tide before they reach Earth." The ancient secrets. As the battle raged on, Hawkins grew more desperate. The Federation's forces were losing ground, and the reinforcements they had hoped for seemed a distant promise. The ZALNAR were closing in on the Federation's capital, Earth, with each passing minute. It was then that Hawkins received an unexpected transmission. It came not from the front lines, but from a source within Federation space, the Drakari. "Captain Hawkins," Ambassador Rolana's voice came through the calm but urgent. "We may have a solution." "Go ahead," Hawkins said, hoping for a spark of hope. "We have ancient knowledge, passed down through our people for generations. The Drakari once fought the ZALNAR, long before the Zorathians rose to power. We possess data on their weaknesses, on their technologies. We may be able to reverse their weapon systems, but it will take time we may not have." "How long?" Hawkins asked, glancing at the chaotic scenes unfolding on the viewscreen. "Perhaps enough time to strike a decisive blow," Rolana replied. "But you must buy us that time. You must hold the line at all costs." Hawkins turned toward the crew, his mind racing. "We're not backing down. We'll buy you that time. Ambassador, prepare the data. We'll make sure the ZALNAR don't get any closer to Earth." The battle intensifies. The Endurance and the rest of the Terran fleet continued to engage the ZALNAR in a desperate struggle. The ZALNAR ships were relentless, coming in waves, fast and efficient. Their technology seemed almost alive, adapting to every countermeasure the Federation threw at them. The Terran fleet was taking heavy casualties, and morale was beginning to crumble. "We can't keep pushing them back like this," Lieutenant Corbin shouted, her eyes scanning the screen. "They're overwhelming us." "Stay focused," Hawkins snapped, his hands clenched on the command console. "We're not giving up. We've fought too hard to get here." Just as it seemed that all hope was lost, a new force appeared on the edge of the battlefield, a fleet of ships, sleek and silent, emerging from the darkness. They were the Drakari, led by Ambassador Rolana herself. "We've arrived," Rolana's voice echoed through the calms. "Now, let's show the ZALNAR the true power of a united galaxy." The Drakari ships moved with deadly grace, firing in perfect coordination with the Terran fleet. Together, the two forces launched a coordinated assault on the ZALNAR, disrupting their formations and forcing them to retreat temporarily. But the battle was far from over. "We've bought you time, Captain," Rolana said, her voice laced with determination. "Now, use it wisely." Hawkins turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy all our reserves. We go in hard. This is our one chance." Turning the tide. With the ZALNAR temporarily pushed back, Hawkins ordered a full-scale offensive. The Terran fleet, reinvigorated by the arrival of the Drakari, unleashed a devastating barrage of firepower. Each shot was calculated, aimed at the weak points of the ZALNAR ships, their shields flickering under the onslaught. But it was the data from the Drakari that would ultimately tip the scales. The Terran engineers, working tirelessly aboard the Endurance, quickly adapted the knowledge into their own weapons systems. They hacked into the ZALNAR technology, using their own energy pulses against them. The ZALNAR ships began to falter, their once impenetrable defenses cracking under the assault. "Captain," Corbin said, her voice tinged with hope, "we're getting through. The ZALNAR ships are starting to fail." The tide of the battle shifted. The ZALNAR, who had once seemed unstoppable, were now on the defensive. Terran and Drakari forces pressed their advantage, overwhelming the remaining ZALNAR ships. The once feared fleet was now crumbling, falling apart under the combined force of the two united races. Finally, the last of the ZALNAR ships retreated, disappearing into the depths of space. The galaxy was safe, for now. The price of victory. As the dust settled, Captain Hawkins stood on the bridge of the Endurance, staring at the aftermath of the battle. The Terran fleet was battered, the Drakari ships were damaged, but the ZALNAR threat had been quelled. However, the cost had been high. "We did it," Lieutenant Corbin said, a mixture of relief and exhaustion in her voice. Yes, Hawkins replied, but his expression remained grim. But we can't forget what we've learned today. The Zalanaar were just one threat. There will be others. General Briggs' voice came over the calm, her tone somber. We've won, Captain, but the galaxy is changing. We've seen what happens when ancient enemies awaken. The Federation will have to be stronger than ever to face what's to come. We will be ready, Hawkins said. Humanity will lead the way, not through fear, but through strength, unity, and resilience. As the Terran fleet pulled back, the stars ahead of them seemed brighter, more inviting. The galaxy had been shaken, but humanity had proven its place among the stars. The war against the Zalanaar had ended, but the journey of humanity, one of discovery, challenge, and endless possibilities, was just beginning. End of Part 3. The Reckoning, New Horizons and Unseen Forces. The battle for the galaxy's future had ended, but Captain Hawkins knew that the victory over the Zalanaar was just the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that would define humanity's place in the cosmos for generations to come. In the aftermath of the battle, the Terran Federation and its allies, including the Drakari, began the long process of rebuilding. The scars of the war were evident, but hope blossomed amid the ruins. The Federation's forces had emerged victorious, but Hawkins understood that this fragile peace would be short-lived if they didn't learn from the past. We can't afford to let our guard down, Hawkins said as he stood in the Federation Council chamber, addressing the representatives of the galaxy's most influential species. The Zalanaar were only one threat. There are others out there, ancient empires, long-forgotten races, all waiting for their moment to strike. Ambassador Relana, standing beside him, nodded gravely. We've seen the horrors of a galaxy torn apart by power struggles. The Zalanaar are just a fragment of what could lie beyond the horizon. The assembled council members shifted uneasily. The weight of the situation was clear. The galaxy was in flux, and the fragile alliances formed during the war were now being tested. A loud chime interrupted the proceedings, signaling the arrival of a new transmission. The screen flickered to life, revealing a strange, shifting symbol, an unfamiliar glyph that no one in the room had ever seen before. Captain Hawkins, Ambassador Relana. A deep, calm voice reverberated from the speaker, sending chills down their spines. You have proven yourselves in battle, but you have not yet faced what truly lies in the dark corners of the universe. We are the Vair, and we have been watching you. Hawkins froze. The Vair? Another unknown threat? You believe the galaxy is yours to command, the voice continued, but you are simply playing with fire. We will show you what happens when mortals think they can challenge the darkness. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the council chamber shrouded in uneasy silence. We've heard of the Vair, Ambassador Relana said, her voice low, but they've always been thought of as a myth, a story to scare children. They are no myth, Hawkins replied, his jaw set. And now, it looks like we're going to find out what they want. The Vair threat. The next few days were a blur of military strategy and diplomatic turmoil. The Federation scrambled to gather intelligence on the Vair. What little they knew came from fragments of ancient texts and legends passed down through the ages. The Vair were a race of beings who existed outside the normal flow of time, a species that had mastered the art of manipulating reality itself. Some said they were more powerful than the Zalanaar. Others claimed they were agents of chaos, roaming the cosmos in search of civilizations to destroy. Whatever the truth was, the Vair were not to be underestimated. Hawkins called an emergency meeting with the Federation's top commanders. The Endurance would lead the charge, but they had to be prepared for something far beyond conventional warfare. We need to think differently, Hawkins said, pacing the command center. If the Vair can manipulate time, if they can exist in multiple states of reality at once, conventional tactics won't work. We have to find a way to counter that power. What if we can't? Lieutenant Corbin asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. What if their power is beyond anything we can fight? Hawkins looked her in the eye. We will find a way, because if we don't, we're not just fighting for control of the galaxy, we're fighting for survival. As the meeting broke up, Hawkins found himself staring out into the vast expanse of space. The threat of the Vair loomed large, but he wasn't about to let it consume him. Humanity had already survived against impossible odds. They had defeated the Zorathians, outwitted the Vorth, and stood their ground against the Zalanar. Now, they would face the Vare, whatever it took. The first encounter. Weeks passed with no word from the Vare, and then, without warning, the Vare made their move. The Endurance and its fleet were on patrol near the outer rim when an enormous rift tore through the fabric of space itself. From it, the Vare fleet emerged, ships that defied all known laws of physics. Some were gigantic, their shapes constantly shifting, while others seemed to fold in and out of existence. It was as though the ships existed in multiple dimensions at once. The moment the fleet appeared, the space around them warped, twisting and distorting. Time itself seemed to slow. The stars dimmed and brightened in erratic patterns, and Hawkins felt an unnatural pressure on his mind, like a weight pressing down on him. "Report," Hawkins demanded, his voice tight with urgency. "Sir," Corbin said, her voice trembling, "They're ships, they're not just here. They're here before they arrived. I'm seeing multiple time signatures. They're moving through different realities." Hawkins's mind raced. This is what we're up against. They're manipulating time itself. A voice, cold and disembodied, filled the comms. "You cannot fight what you do not understand, Captain Hawkins," the Vare's voice said. "We have seen your future, and it is nothing but ashes. The galaxy will bow before us, or it will burn." "Not today," Hawkins muttered, determination in his eyes. "All ships, prepare for battle. A battle like no other." The first strike was unlike anything the Terran fleet had ever faced. Energy blasts tore through the fleet, and space itself seemed to distort as the Vare ships flickered in and out of existence. Every time the Endurance fired, the Vare ships were already gone, only to reappear in a new position, their attacks relentless. "Shields at 30%, Corbin yelled. "We can't hit them. They keep moving in and out of time." Hawkins gritted his teeth. "We need to adapt. We need to outthink them." In that moment, Hawkins realized that fighting the Vare in conventional ways would only play into their hands. They had to find a way to make the Vare fight on their terms. Hawkins ordered the fleet to move in unpredictable patterns, breaking off into small, rapid maneuvers to force the Vare into a position where they couldn't predict the next move. It worked. For the first time, the Vare ships couldn't react fast enough. The Terran fleet's erratic movements allowed them to land hits, damaging the Vare vessels. "We've got them," Lieutenant Corbin shouted. "Their shields are failing. Keep pushing." But the Vare were not done. They had only just begun to show their true power. In a flash of light, one of the Vare ships unleashed a devastating wave of energy, an energy that seemed to unmake the very fabric of reality. The wave spread out, enveloping everything in its path. Space, time, and matter itself seemed to twist and unravel. Hawkins's heart pounded in his chest as the very essence of the battlefield began to fracture. It was clear, the Vare were not just another enemy to fight. They were a force of nature, and humanity's survival was now in question. End of Part 4. The Reckoning, Survival Against the Vare. The battle had reached an intensity Hawkins had never imagined. The Vare, with their ability to manipulate time and reality, were unlike any adversary the galaxy had ever faced. The Federation fleet, battered but unyielding, fought valiantly, but it was clear that the traditional methods of warfare would not suffice against an enemy that could control the very fabric of existence. As the Vare's energy wave continued to unravel space, Hawkins watched in horror as his fleet's shields flickered and died. The Endurance's hull groaned under the immense pressure, and the stars themselves appeared to bend and twist in the sky. The universe was warping, reality itself felt unstable. "Captain," Corbin's voice snapped him back to the present. "We can't keep this up. The Vare's weapon, it's tearing through our defenses." Hawkins clenched his fists. "I know. We need to find a way to counter this. Now." He turned to Rilana, who had been studying the Vare ships closely from the observation deck. She had remained eerily silent during the battle, her eyes flickering as if she was piecing together something from the past. "The Vare, they feed on entropy," Rilana said, her voice carrying a quiet urgency. "Their power comes from the collapse of order, from the unraveling of reality. If we can reverse that process, rebuild the order, even for a brief moment, it might disrupt their control." Hawkins's brow furrowed. "How do we do that?" Rilana stepped closer, her gaze focused. "I don't know if it will work, but we have an ancient Drakari relic, a device that taps into the very structure of spacetime. It's a long shot, but if we can activate it, it might be enough to create a bubble of stability in the heart of the Vare fleet. The Vare's power thrives in chaos. If we restore order, even temporarily, it could disrupt them. Where is this device? Hawkins asked, adrenaline pumping. R'Ellana hesitated for a moment. It's on the Drakari flagship. We'll need to board the ship, navigate through their defenses, and activate the device before it's too late. Then let's go. Hawkins turned to his crew. Prepare the Endurance for boarding. We're not letting the Vare win today. The boarders. The Endurance disengaged from the battle, narrowly avoiding the devastating energy blasts from the Vare. The fleet's remaining ships continued to engage the Vare forces, distracting them long enough to allow Hawkins's team to make their move. A small, elite team, comprised of Hawkins, Lieutenant Corbin, a handful of Drakari warriors, and Federation engineers, prepared to board the Drakari flagship. The device, located deep within the heart of the alien ship, was their only hope. If they couldn't reach it in time, the galaxy would fall into the Vare's grasp. I don't like this, Captain, Corbin muttered as she adjusted her tactical gear. We're walking straight into the belly of the beast. We don't have a choice, Hawkins replied grimly. If we don't do this, we lose everything. The team boarded a shuttle and began their perilous journey toward the Drakari flagship, a massive, shifting vessel that seemed to pulse and change shape with every passing second. As they neared the ship's surface, the shuttle shook violently, rocked by the Vare's destabilizing energy. Steady, Hawkins barked. Brace for impact. The shuttle slammed into the flagship's hull, and the team quickly disembarked, weapons drawn. The Drakari warriors led the charge, their sharp senses attuned to the shifting architecture of the ship. The corridors of the Drakari flagship were unlike anything Hawkins had ever seen, sprawling, organic, and ever-changing, as though the ship itself was alive. Keep moving, Hawkins ordered as the team advanced through the twisting hallways. The device should be just ahead. The journey was treacherous. Strange anomalies popped up in the corridors. As time warped around them, sometimes they found themselves moving in reverse. Other times, days seemed to pass in seconds. It was clear that the Vare had already begun to exert their influence on the flagship. We don't have much time, one of the Drakari warriors shouted, his voice strained. The Vare are already starting to corrupt the ship. Hawkins's pulse quickened. Push forward, we can't let them stop us now. After what felt like an eternity, the team finally reached the heart of the ship, the central chamber where the Drakari relic was kept. The chamber was filled with shifting energies, an ethereal glow emanating from the relic at its center. It was a small, intricate device, composed of strange metals and arcane patterns that seemed to move and change. Hawkins approached it cautiously, reaching out to touch its surface. The Vare won't let us do this, R'Ellana warned. We must activate it now, or it will be too late. The final stand. As Hawkins approached the relic, a terrible rumble shook the chamber. The Vare had noticed their presence. A deep, rumbling voice filled the air, reverberating in their very bones. You dare defy the inevitable? The Vare's voice boomed, seemingly coming from everywhere at once. You cannot stop the collapse of order. This galaxy is ours. The walls of the chamber began to warp and shift. The Vare were closing in, their power overwhelming. Hawkins knew that if they didn't act fast, everything would be lost. Corbin, R'Ellana, help me with the activation sequence, Hawkins ordered. The three of them rushed to the relic, their hands moving quickly as they manipulated the strange device. But the Vare were relentless. In an instant, the chamber shifted, and they found themselves surrounded by a dark, swirling void, a space where time and space were no longer bound by any laws. I told you, Captain, the Vare voice echoed. You cannot win. But Hawkins didn't back down. He pressed the final button on the relic, and in that instant, a brilliant surge of energy erupted from the device, flooding the chamber with light. The universe seemed to pause. For a moment, everything was still. The Vare's energy faltered, their presence no longer warping reality. The destabilization that had once spread across the battlefield slowed, the chaotic energy beginning to fade. Now, Hawkins shouted. The relic's power surged outward, forming a bubble of stability around the Endurance and the Drakari flagship. The Vare's influence shattered. their ships flickering out of existence as the fabric of reality around them began to solidify once more. The Veer were no longer in control. Aftermath. The battle was over. The Veer had been pushed back, but the cost had been high. The Federation's fleet had been decimated, and the Drakari flagship had sustained catastrophic damage. Still, against all odds, humanity and its allies had emerged victorious. On the bridge of the Endurance, Hawkins stood in silence, watching as the stars returned to their normal state. The galaxy was safe, for now. "We did it," Corbin said quietly. "But at what cost?" "We did what we had to do," Hawkins replied. "The Veer won't be back, not for a long time. But the galaxy is still in chaos," Rilana added. "There will be others, more threats, more challenges. This war is far from over." Hawkins nodded, looking out into the void. "Then we'll be ready. Humanity will stand strong, no matter what comes next." The universe had been forever changed by the reckoning with the Veer, and while this chapter had closed, the story of humanity's place among the stars was only just beginning. End of Part 5.